Okay, you got a formula for simple interest, right? All right, so if you got simple interest, does everybody understand that on simple interest, how many times is the interest calculated? Just once. On the whole amount for the whole time. Okay? Now I kind of gave you some different formulas on interest. All right. What's the one that has an A? Because I'm going to probably kind of stick with that one a pretty good bit. A equals what? P times what? 1 plus R what? Now, what's your A? What's A stand for?
Future amount.
Your future amount. So that's the amount at the end. Okay. What's the P stand for? The principal. All right. What's your R? Your interest rate. And what's your T? Your time. Now, on simple interest, as long as the rate and time match, it doesn't matter what they are. That's kind of your choice. They can both be in years, or both be in months, or both be in days, or both be in quarters. As long as they match, you get to pick. Everybody clear with that? Okay, now, so on this one, if you need to know what the interest was, how would you find the interest at the end? Like if I told you that you deposited $5,000 at 2%, for 5 years. All right, you plug into that, it gives you your future amount. How do you find how much of that was interest? What would you do to find interest?
Subtract the principal.
You would have to take your future amount and subtract your initial amount. So that's the way you get interest. All right, so that's kind of the formula that I'm going to start. I use the other one, I equals PRT, and then you add it to kind of show you where that came from. Okay, now if the other way you prefer to find the interest, or that I equals PRT, and then just add it to your principal to get your future amount, can you do it that way if you want to? Yes, that's kind of a personal preference. Okay, now compound interest. How many times is the interest calculated? Once or more than once? More than once. All right, if it says compounded quarterly, then how many times a year is quarterly? 4. But if you were doing it for 10 years, you'd have 40 quarters. Is everybody with me? If it said it compounded monthly, how many times a year is monthly? 12. But if you did it for 10 years, that'd be 120 months. Is everybody with me? All right. So what's your formula for compound interest? You still have an A, don't you? But what do you have here?
P.
P, and then a what?
Times
1
plus I.
plus I, and where's your N? Is your power. Okay, so that's kind of the two formulas. So we're going to get a third formula today. All right, and then we'll kind of mix them up another day. All right, so again, what's your P? Still your what? Your principal, just like P up here is your principal. Okay, what's your A?
Future amount.
Future amount, just like up here, A is what? Future amount. Now, the difference is up here it's an R and a T, and down here it's an I and a what? An N. And here's the reason it's kind of an I and an N. This I needs to be your interest rate per period. So here it does matter what it is. So if it says compounded quarterly, that I's got to be the interest rate per quarter. If the problem says compounded monthly, that I's got to be your interest rate per what? Month. If it says compounded biannually or semi-annually, that means that interest rate's got to be your rate per every half of a year. Okay? So that R is per period. Now you see that N. N is like your time, but N is your number of periods. So what that means is how many times the interest is being compounded. So if it said, we're going to talk about in a minute, if it said compounded quarterly for 10 years, that N wouldn't just be 4. It'd be 4 times 10, it would be what? 40. If it said compounded monthly, that N wouldn't just be 12, it would be 12 times 10, which would be 100 what? 20. Okay? So are we understanding the difference? So up here, when you do R, it's your interest rate. And when you do T, it's your time, and all I've got to worry about here is they've got to match. But what they are doesn't matter. But down here, they have to match, and both have to be in terms of your periods. Okay? So if that wasn't as clear as I needed it to be, is that a little better now? Now let's go over the answers on the worksheet, on the simple interest and compound interest worksheet, and then we'll work some of them. Okay? All right, look at number 1. It said you borrowed $600 at 9% simple interest for 2 years. Now the first thing I asked you was, how much will you have to pay back? How much money did y'all get for paying back? Paying back. $708 is what I got. So B said, so how much of that was interest? How much of that was interest? $108. Okay? And 2 said that you invest $4,500 at 3% simple interest for 6 years. Now, this is a little different. I didn't ask how much you'd have at the end. I asked how much money will you make on your investment? In other words, how much interest is there? Does that make sense? So one of the things you got to do is you got to read the question. Because when you're taking an LSAT or an MCAT or a GRE or my test or anything else, you know, if I ask you what's your name and you say 135 Countrywood Circle, either your mama was really strange or you just gave her your address. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not that that's not accurate, good information. It doesn't answer the question. So on number 2, how much money in interest, how much money did you make on your investment? $810. Now, there better not be $110 in that account, though, or you got ripped off. Is everybody with me? So make sure, remember we talked about this over and over, but I'm going to keep harping on it. Polio's problem-solving process has 4 parts to it. And the most important steps are 1 and 4. Remember, 1 was understand the problem, and 4 was look back. So everybody wants to just jump and do 2 and 3, which is like write it down and solve it and box it. But if you don't do 4, which is look back to make sure that you answer the question they asked, on a test you'll lose points because you'll kind of get nailed. Okay? All right, look at number 3. Number 3, you got a tax refund of $6,000. I've never experienced this, but I've heard it happens. And you want to invest it, okay, for 5 years, and you've got a choice. You can either stick it in an account earning 2% simple interest, or you can stick it in a different account that gives you 1 5/10% interest compounded quarterly, then ask you which one's better for you. Because in the real world, that's what you do. You kind of shop around. Because different banks have slightly different rates, and different banks compound them differently. And so you have to shop around to see who's going to make you the most money. Okay? So on A, how much interest did you earn when you did simple interest? Did y'all get $600? Okay, good. That's what I got. Now B, I got over 400. Is that what y'all got? I got $466 and around 40 cents. Did y'all get something close to that?
I got 498.
Got 498, so we'll make sure we have to work that one. Okay? So on B, how would you decide which one's your better investment? Whichever one gets the most money, because I'm getting the interest. Now, if I'm paying the interest, I want the one that's what? Less. See, that's once again, that's that understand the problem. Okay? Because if the interest is coming to me, I want the higher number. But if I'm paying the interest, I want the lower number. All right. Number 4. So your sweet grandmama put $5,000 in the savings account, earning 3% compounding monthly. So 18 years later, you're going to get that money out of the account. How much money did y'all have in the account? Do you have over 8,000? I got like $8,574.25 or something. Okay, I'll have to go back and look. All right. On 5, how much money? Now this time I changed the question. I gave you the future amount. Did you notice that? And I wanted the initial amount. Did y'all get around $3,000 for that initial investment? All right, that's what I got, around $3,000. And then on number 6, again, I asked you for the end amount. Looks like I got $9,868.83. Okay, 9868.83. And then on number 7, let's see what we did. the first number asked you what your interest was, right? And the second number asked you what you paid back, is that correct? Looks like I got about $1,596.93 in interest. So I paid back $11,596.93. Okay? Now let's go back up first and let's look at number 3. Okay? Is everybody okay on 3A where you got $600? Well, let's look at B. How much interest would you earn if you invested it at 1 5/10% compounded quarterly? So which one of these formulas am I going to grab? This top one or this bottom one? This bottom. All right, so I'm going to erase this. Now, every time I go to work one of these, you'll see me on my paper, I go to the side and I write down A and P and I and N. Okay, that way I can kind of keep them a little more organized. Now, what do I know this time? Do I know the end amount or the beginning amount? I know the what? The beginning amount. How much money was it? 6,000. All right, so we're going to put 6,000 next to our principal because principal is always the money at the beginning. Okay. Now, interest rate. What's my interest rate in this problem on B? It was 1 point what? 5%. All right, so I'm going to write down 1.5%. Now, it didn't say, so it must be per what? Year. All right, now I'm going to leave that for just a second. Now, how long am I doing this for? 5 years. All right, now let me go get them. I'm trying to get a marker that writes a little darker for them. Okay. So my time was 5 years. Now, does everybody understand that if this were simple interest, I would be good to go because they match? Okay, but it's not simple interest, so that's not good enough anymore. Now I've got to go do it depending on how they compounded it. So on that one, what are they compounded? They're compounded what? Quarterly. So everything's got to be in terms of quarters. All right, so how many times a year is quarters? 4. So I need this interest rate, not per year, but I need it per what? Quarter. Now the first thing I've got to do is I've got to change that percent to a decimal. How do I change a percent to a decimal? Remind me. All right, divide. What am I dividing by when I change percent to a decimal? I'm really dividing by what number? 100. So some of you are like, move the decimal. You're right. When you divide by 100, how many places does it move the decimal? Twice. Which way? To the left. So does everybody understand that that's going to be 0.015, first of all, when I drop the percent sign? But I've got to have it not per year. I've got to have it per what? Quarter. So how many times a year is per quarter? 4. So I've got to divide that by 4. All right, so I've got to get my calculator, so you help me. Now don't let me just do it, you need to do it with me. So make sure you got your calculator. So 0.015, and if I divide that by 4, I got 0.00375. See if that's what you got. Okay, because again, me doing it while you're watching is not going to do you any good on a test. So make sure you get those calculators and bring them to class. So that is per quarter. So does everybody understand? Now, sometimes that number doesn't come out to be pretty. So I'm just going to usually take it way out before I round off. Okay? So is everybody clear about where I got that? Now, what have I got to do this? I've got to turn this into quarters. All right, so I've got 5 years times how many are in a year? How many quarters in a year? We said how many? 4. So what's that going to give me? 20 what? Quarters. So now everything's in terms of my period. My interest rate is 0.00375 per quarter, and I know that this interest is calculated 20 times. Every 3 months, they calculate the interest. So they're going to do that. They're going to do it for 5 years, 4 times a year is 20 times. Everybody with me? All right, so let's go look at this formula. So I've got 6,000, and I've got 1 plus, my interest rate is 0.00375, I could write, and then my N is a 20. Okay? Now you help me, all right? What do you do first in order of operations? What's the first thing you always look for in order of operations? Parentheses. Is there something inside of a parenthesis for me to do? So I gotta go do that, all right? So I add those numbers, so I get 1.00375. Everybody clicking with me? Okay, now, what comes after parentheses? There's a parenthesis, but there's nothing in there to do, okay? Exponents. So I've got to go do this exponent before I do that multiplication. Because if I do the wrong order, I'm going to get the wrong answer, okay? So on your calculators, you're going to type in 1.00375. It's usually an up arrow, okay? And then I'm going to type in 20 for my power. And hit enter. And you're going to get a big old long numbers. Everybody with me? Well, I'm going to go ahead and write all that number down. Because I don't want to stop and round, because if I stop and round right here, my little error is going to get multiplied by 6,000, which means my little bit of error just became a what? Big error.
John was equal to that number.
All right. Everybody else double check and see if that's what y'all got. Double check it.
I think it's not.
Okay, I'll double check. 1.00375 raised to the 20th. That's what I got. Is that what y'all got when you did it? Okay, I'll double check yours afterwards. It may just be a glitch.
Kind of how, like it won't go that long.
It was, so maybe, in other words, it's probably flipping you to scientific notation. And there may be a way after class for me to change it, but it may not be. So, do you understand what Catherine was asking? If your calculator flips you to scientific notation, first of all, let's make sure we're clear about this. Maybe it does this. And then it gives you something like, if it said something like this, e to the second or something. What does it mean when it's got an e? It means times 10 to that power, right? So what that means is if it's an e and a positive number, you're going to go to the right two places. If it's e and a negative number, that means that decimal goes to the what? To the left. Okay. I want to make sure in case yours does that. Now, say that number times 6,000 and see what you get. I will put down everything I get. See if that's what you got on your calculator. Is that what y'all got? Now, I've got to round to the nearest penny. So I've got to worry about this third number past the decimal. Am I going to round to 39 cents or 40 cents? 40. Why? If that number is 5 or bigger, that one goes up. If that number is 4 or smaller, that one stays the same. So because that 7 is bigger than 5, I got to add another penny. So I'm going to get $6,466.40. So that's where I got my answer from. Okay. So if that one bothered you before, is it better now? But you notice if you round off sooner, you'll get a different answer. Is everybody with me? Now some of this will be as far as your machines will go. So you write down as far as your machine will go so I can use those numbers. Okay? All right, I need to work with at least 1 or 2 more. Does anybody have a preference about which other one I work?
You worked 4.
4? Okay, let's look at what 4 says. When you were born, your grandparents deposited $5,000 in the savings account, earning 3% compounded monthly. So on your 18th birthday, you get your money from that account. How much money is in the account? Now again, is it simple interest or compound interest? Which one is it? Compound. So I've got this same formula. Okay. All right. Let me move it over a little bit so I got a little more room. Now, like I told you, I'm going to go over the side and put an A and a P and an I and an N. That makes me have a little more order to what I'm doing. Now, do I know the end amount or the beginning amount? What do I know on this one? The beginning. Okay, what's my beginning amount? They put, was it $5,000? Okay. Now, what's the interest rate that they found? 3%. Doesn't say, so it must be 3% per what? Per year. Okay, and how long are we doing this for? 18 years. Now, like I'm gonna keep saying the same thing. If it were simple interest, I'd be good to go because they match. But it's not simple interest, it's compound. So I've got to have everything in terms of what it's compounding. What's this account compounding? Compounding what this time? Monthly. So my interest rate can't be per year, it's got to be per what? Per month. So first of all, what's that 3% gets changed to? Point what? 0.03. Does everybody understand how I'm changing that percent to a decimal? Dividing by 100. Now, what am I going to take that 0.03, that 300s, and divide by? Monthly is how many times a year? 12. Okay. So I got 0.0025. Is that what y'all got? So that's per what? Per month.
Wait, what did you do? You did 0.03 times 12?
No, I'm doing 0.03 divided by 12. Yeah, think about why. If it takes a whole year for you to get 3%, would you get more or less than that in just a month? Do you understand that you get less? If it takes a whole year for you to earn 3%, in a month you won't have earned 3% yet. Okay? You would have earned way less than that. Okay? And see, if I add that to itself 12 times, then I'm back to my 3% by the end of the year. Okay? Is that clicking with everybody? Like nod, fall at your chair or something. I need some feedback. Okay. All right. I can't see your sweet little smiles. Okay. Which drives me crazy. All right. Now, 18 years. I can't have it in years. I've got to have it in what? Months. Now, what am I going to do? In 1 year, I got 12 months. In 2 years, I've got 24 months. There, I'm going to have more than 18, right? So what am I going to do with the 18 and the 12 on this one? That's where I'm going to multiply by my 12. Okay? So if I do 18 times 12, what'd y'all get? 216. So 216 months. So now everything's in terms of months, so I'm good to go. Okay? All right, so let's substitute in. We've got a P, which is 5,000. We've got 1 plus, now what's my interest rate? Point what? 0.0025. And what's my N? It's not 18, it's what? 216. Okay. So again, I've got to follow my order of operations. What did you tell me I had to do first? Parentheses, very good. All right, so when I add that, I get 1.0025, 1 and 25 10,000ths. And my power is still 216. Now, remind me again, after parenthesis, what do I do? Exponent. So I've got to go do this to that power first. I don't multiply by the 5,000 yet. So I've got 1.0025. I raise it to the 216th power. And I get this number, 1.714850874. Did y'all get something close to that? And then my last step is just to multiply by what? 5,000. So that's where I got $8,574. Now is it going to be 25 cents or 26 cents? 25, because that number was a 4. So I don't round up. Now, I didn't ask you this, but what if I did? So how much interest did you earn on that account?
$3,574.
All right, Brock, where'd you get $3,574.20?
You just subtracted from 5.
Yeah, he just said that was the end amount and 5,000 was the beginning amount, and the difference in the two would be the interest. Okay? So you earned a little over $3,500 by doing absolutely nothing, which is my favorite way to earn. Okay? All right, does that one make sense to everybody? Now I want to work one more, and then I'm going to let you kind of rework the ones you had trouble with. Okay? I want to rework one where you're missing the beginning amount. Was that number 5? Just to make sure we're okay on that one. All right? And then tonight you'll have a little more homework on this and then the new stuff. okay? All right, now look what number 5 says. It says a deposit reaches a balance of $3,422.91 after 6 years. If the account was earning 2.2% compounded monthly, how much was the initial deposit? So I've got my A and my P and my I and my N. Now, it says the deposit reaches a balance. So what is this $3,422.91? Is it the beginning amount or the end amount? This time it's the end amount. And the question asks you how much was the initial deposit. So does everybody understand that I don't know P? Now what's my interest rate? It says 2 point what? 2 2/10%. Doesn't say, so it must be per what? Per year. And how long am I doing this? For 6 what? Years. But my problem is they match, but they don't match in terms of my periods. This is compounded what? Monthly. So everything's got to be in terms of months. So remind me how I'm going to change this 2.2%. What am I going to do with that 2.2%?
Divided by 12.
Or what's the first thing I'm going to do before I even divide it by 12? I got to get rid of that percent sign. So I'm not going to divide 2.2 by 12. What am I going to divide by 12? Point what? 0.022. 0.022 divided by 12. And that's not going to come out all pretty. Did y'all get to come out nice? I got 0.0018 and then I got a bunch of 3s. Is everybody with me? So I probably carried it pretty far out. I probably just carried it as far as my machine would go. Because if I stop and round in the middle, especially if I do this a bunch of times, I'm going to get a little bit of error that gets real big. And that's per month. So per month. Now what have I got to change that 6 years to? All right, so how do I change years to months? I take that 6 and what? Time by 12. So how many times is this interest going to be calculated? 72 times. Every month they're going to calculate that interest. That's way different than simple interest when it's calculated just one time. Okay? So let's plug in. My end amount is $3,422.91. And my P, I don't know. And I've got 1 plus 0.0018 and then a bunch of 3s. And then my power is a 72. Everybody feel okay about it? Okay? So you told me the first thing I do is parenthesis. I'm going to have to do that first. So 1.0018 and all those 3s. All right, what did you tell me I do after do parentheses? What do I do next? Do I do exponents? So I've got to take that number to the 72nd power. Now you do that and see what you get. All right, I got 1.14 and it kept going. Is that agree with what y'all got?
I got 1.1382.
All right, let me double check it. So I did 1.0018 and all those 3s to the 72nd power.
Oh, I didn't put all my 3s in.
Okay, yeah. And see, that's what I'm saying. It'll be slightly different if I don't. Now, don't I want P by itself? We understand that? All right, then ask me this. What is it? What does this parenthesis mean I'm doing with this big long number in this P? That means I'm doing what with them with that parenthesis? I'm multiplying. How do you undo multiplication? So I'm going to have to divide this side by that big long number. So what have I got to do over here? I gotta do the same thing to both sides, don't I? So I've got to divide this side by that big line number. Now, does everybody understand that on this side, that number is going to divide out with that number and just leave me P? So to get my answer, I've got to take that number and divide by that number. So let's see what we get when we do that. Please don't fall. Okay. All right, here's what comes out on my machine. I get 2999.998898. Is that what y'all got? But look what happens. I've got to divide to the nearest, I've got to round to the nearest penny, and then that number an 8. Well, that 8's going to start doing a whole bunch of stuff. That makes that 9 go up to my 10, which makes that one go up by 10. In other words, I've got to add a penny to that. So when I add a penny to $2,999.99, what's it turned it into? 3,000. And I always warn somebody, instead of putting equals, why don't I put those wavy things? What does that tell? What's that mean? Approximately equal to. So that warns somebody, just in case, because if they round, they're going to get a slightly different answer than me. So it looks like that initial deposit was around $3,000. Okay. All right, are we okay? So part of your homework assignment is going to be go back to rework the ones that you didn't get right and you need to look at. Now, I need to show you another formula before I do the video on it. Okay, and I want to show you at least one problem work with me in the class, and then there'll be a lot of them worked on the video. Okay. Now, before I do that, though, let me double check. Are y'all okay, do you think, on the graphing stuff? Does that make sense to you with the T-tables and moving stuff around? Does everybody feel comfortable with the graphing sheet? Okay, just want to double check. Now, here's what we're going to do today. So part of your homework assignment tonight is going to be to do more of these. I'll give you a few more new ones, okay? And then we're working these old ones. And then what I want to talk about today, though, is this. I want to talk about making payments. Because a lot of times, instead of you having a lump sum to deposit, or you borrow a lump sum, most of us don't borrow $10,000 and then wait till the end to pay the $10,000 back. What do? We borrow the $10,000 like for my car, and then what do? I don't pay it back at the end. What do? I make payments on it every month or every quarter or every year. Everybody with me? Well, that formula is going to be slightly different, okay? So do we understand that this is a compound interest formula where all the interest is calculated, but kind of you have a big end amount. So you have one amount at the beginning and one amount what? At the end. So this one is more like there's a beginning amount and an end amount, but you whittle it down with payments. And the advantage to doing that is every time I make a payment, my principal goes down a little bit. When I make a payment, that principal goes what? Down a little bit. So this interest is not always being calculated on this $3,000 because that goes down. Now, I do need you to understand this, and we'll talk about this more later, but when I borrow $20,000 or whatever it is for my car, you do understand that when you pay back your car payment of like $400, that does not mean your $20,000 went down $400. That $20,000 only go down a little bit because what businesses make you do is you pay off almost all the interest before you start paying off the amount you really borrowed. So sometimes people get confused by that. All right, so we're going to kind of do one. Now, let me write the formula on the board first. All right. So I'm going to put making payments. All right, and it's going to look slightly different. So that's my formula for making payments. So if you write that formula down, then I'm gonna tell you what everything stands for. Most of them you know. There's only one letter that's different. And then we're gonna go work one. So this time I've got a P and an R and an I and an N. So the difference is I don't have an A, I have an R. Guess what P still stands for? Principal. All right, this I is still my interest rate per period. Because these are always compounded. And my N is still my number of periods. So can you guess what the R is?
Right? No.
It's the payment. You would think it was rate, because yeah, they've already got a rate down here. It's a cap, that's why they put it in capital R. So if you're paying it off every month, R would be your monthly payment. If I'm paying it off every quarter, then R will be my quarterly payment. Okay? Everybody okay so far? So let me show you kind of what we're talking about. Suppose you went and bought a car. All right, now cars can range, you know, from this price to the house, you know, my house doesn't cost that much. Okay, so let's do something simple. All right, let's say that you borrowed $20,000 to buy a car. So you're either going to finance it at the dealership, maybe you finance it through the bank, but somebody loans you $20,000 to give cash. Okay, so now you got your ride. All right. Suppose the best interest rate you could find. All right, you financed it at 6% compounded monthly. What is your monthly payment? And for sake of easy, I'm going to make those match all the time. Okay? So you go help me. Let me kind of get my other marker. Okay. So on this problem, what's the beginning amount of money? The beginning amount of money is the amount I'm borrowing, right? How much money is that? 20,000. I don't know what my payment is. It's asking me what's my monthly payment. So I don't know what R is. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, what's my interest rate? 6%. Doesn't say, so it must be per what? Per year. Now, I also need you to understand this for just real life purposes. Since you've never borrowed any money, yours is going to be way higher than that. So everybody doesn't get the same rate. And we'll talk about that a little more probably beginning next week. Okay? So if you don't have credit yet, the interest rate's really high because they don't know if you pay off your bills yet because you don't have any bills paid off. Once you've proven that we'll talk about this next week with credit cards, but once you've proven that you can handle debt, then your interest rate drops some. So your personal, your personal, what they call credit score is a big freaking deal. All right, and we'll talk about that next week. Now, and what's my time? I'm doing this, let's say we finance it at 6% compounded quarterly. Let's do it for 5 years. That's probably right now the most popular amount. You can finance them for 3 years. They now have where you can finance them for 7 or 10 years, which you do not want to do. Your car's dying and you're still making payments on it. Do you see what I'm saying? So 5 years is kind of your most popular. I try to do it lower, but we'll see. Now, let's go up here then. So my time is 5 years. But what does everything got to be in terms of? It's got to be monthly. So I've got to go change everything to months. So you go change those things to months and let's double check and we'll see if we agree. All right, did you get 0.06 divided by 12 to be 0.005? Is that what y'all got? So 0.005 per month. And then 5 years, did you multiply by 12? How many months did y'all get? 60. So do we agree on our month things? All right, so let's go substitute into our formula. All right, my P over here is 20,000. I don't know my R, so I'll leave it R. I've got 1 minus 1 plus my I is 0.005. Now notice this end's got a negative in front of it. So that's not going to be 60, it's going to be a negative what? 60. And then all that's still over that same I, so 0.005. So did everybody get it plugged in correctly? Now, just like before, what's the first thing we always do? Parenthesis. Well, see, I've kind of got parenthesis inside of a bracket. So remember, you go inside out. So everybody understand I want to add those two things first. So I've got that R, and I've got 1 minus, I have 1.005 to the negative 60. Everybody okay? Now, I want to make sure we're clear. On your calculator, there's a minus key and a negative key. You don't want to hit the wrong key. Okay? Like my negative is got on mine, it's got like a little parenthesis around it to emphasize that's my negative key. Okay? So if you get your minus key, you're going to get an error message. So I've got to do my exponents. So I'm going to type in 1.005 and I'm going to raise it to hit my negative key. And then I hit 60. So when I do that, here's what I get. I get 0.74137 and it keeps going. So y'all see if that's what y'all got when you did that number raised to that negative 60.
I got 0.258627.
All right, let me double check it and make sure. So 1.005 raised to the negative 60. Okay, I got that. So let's double check it and make sure I have the class. And we understand I've got to say 1 minus that number. Okay. So when I do 1 minus that number on top, that's when I got Brock 0.2586278038. So all I'm doing is just following my order of operations. So I've got to take that number now and divide by 0.005. And when I did, I got 51.72556.075. All right, is everybody tracking with you? Now, I've got this number in the bracket next to R. If I want to get rid of the number in the bracket, doesn't that mean to multiply them? So how am I going to undo multiplication? So I'm going to have to divide both of them. Okay. So I'm going to divide this side by that 51 number. And I'm going to divide this side by that 51 number. So those two go out. So does everybody understand? On the right side, I've just got R left. So when I take that 20,000 and divide by that number, I got about $386.66. See if that's what y'all got. So that's my monthly payment on my car. Now let me ask you this, how would I figure out how much I paid for the car?
Multiply it times.
I'm gonna have to say 386.66 times. How many times did I pay on that car? 60 times, right? $23,199.60. So I paid over $3,000 in interest. If you want to know, that's your monthly payment. If you want to know the total you paid for the car at the end, you say that times how many payments you made, which was 60. Where's your homework gonna be? On me. I'll see y'all on Monday. And the video is gonna be more of these. Okay, to give you some more practice. Sure, on number 7, I got, the first question was the interest. I paid $1,596.93 in interest. So 1,596.93. So then the total amount I paid back was 11,596.93. 11,596.93. You're so welcome. Good night. Cool outside, nice. Have a good night. Sure. They won't let you, I would let you, but at college, they won't let you eat crap. Okay, so. There are, but just double check. If you can't find one, I have one that's good for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, quick question real quick. In this one right here, is every secret
No. There's a negative key.
Okay.
That's my power key. Okay. So I've got to have 1.005 raised to the negative 60. So your calculator going to have a
Your
negative
calculator
key.
is gonna do
Yeah, so I'll do that for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see what we got. There's red light. Let's see. It may have a mode somewhere that we can change. Does that make sense? I don't know how this one does it. Do I do 60 and then change it to a negative? Yeah.
So it gives you.
It does. So here's what you need to do. Like when you type in 1.005, when you hit your power key, and there's a 60 on there, this little key changes the sign of what's over on the calculator. So if you hit that, it now changes it to a negative 60 when it equals, there you go.
And it gave you
And it gave you this number right there.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You too.